Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. The night was silent in the small town of Maplewood, where streetlights cast an orange glow over the quiet streets. The rows of houses appeared asleep, and only a few stray cats broke the silence. Tomas Bennett, 24, a promising Air Force officer, drove quietly in his new car after a long mission. He had spent weeks serving his country with discipline and honor, and tonight he was simply looking forward to returning to the peace and quiet of his home. Little did he know that a simple routine patrol would turn the evening into a nightmare. Behind him, a police car slowed, its blue and red lights flashing in the gloom. Tomas immediately sensed the tension in the air. Officer Sebastian Doyle, young, arrogant, and known for his impulsive temper, was watching intently. Doyle didn't see a respected officer, he only saw a young black man driving a luxury car. A few minutes later, Tomas was forced to stop. The shadow of injustice hung over him, but he remained calm, aware of his rights and his honor. What he didn't know was that this arrest, based on prejudice and hasty judgments, would cost those who had arrested him dearly. In the darkness of that night, Maplewood would witness a lesson in dignity and justice that no one would forget. The police car door slammed behind Tomas. The air was cool, thick with palpable tension. Doyle ushered him into the back seat, his authoritarian gestures betraying a mixture of arrogance and nervousness. "Sit down," Doyle muttered, glancing suspiciously, without a trace of respect. Tomas obeyed calmly, his hands resting on his knees. He knew that any abrupt reaction would only make the situation worse. "Do you think I'm a suspect just because I'm black and drive a luxury car?" he asked firmly, but without raising his voice. Doyle frowned, irritated. "That's exactly what I think," he replied coldly. "You fit the description." "I understand," Tomas replied, "but you're mistaken. I've served this country for years. If you let me show you my military papers, you could check for yourself." Doyle sneered, as if the words had no meaning. He pulled out his phone to call the station, exaggerating the impression that he was dealing with a dangerous criminal. "You think I'm going to be intimidated by your uniform and papers?" Doyle said arrogantly. "Just because you're in the military doesn't mean you're above the law." Tomas took a deep breath. He knew his strength, his patience, his discipline, and his dignity. "I never said I was above the law. But the law applies equally to those who enforce it. I just ask that you do your job properly," he replied calmly. Doyle, frustrated by Tomas's impressive calm, leaned towards him. "I'm warning you, young man, if you don't cooperate, things are not going to go well for you." Tomas gave a small smile, both sad and resolute. He knew that true strength lay not in threats or arrogance, but in self-control and truth. Meanwhile, outside the car, the patrol car's headlights illuminated the empty road. In the stillness of the night, a cell phone discreetly took video of the scene, capturing every moment of this unjust arrest. This simple capture would soon change the course of events. Tomas sat in the back of the patrol car, his hands still in his lap, while Doyle nervously tapped on the dashboard. The officer was beginning to lose patience, and every gesture betrayed his frustration. "You're going to stay quiet and cooperate, or this is going to end badly," Doyle said, his tone intended to be intimidating. "I'm calm, and I'm already cooperating," Tomas replied calmly. "I've shown you my papers and explained my situation. I don't see how I'd justify any different treatment," he added, his gaze fixed and respectful. Doyle sighed and picked up the phone. He made a call to the station, exaggerating the seriousness of the situation. "This is Doyle, bringing you a suspect matching a description. Yes, he's black. Yes, he has a luxury car. I want this dealt with immediately." Tomas felt the injustice hit him again. He knew he was being targeted not for what he had done, but for what he represented in the officer's eyes, a black man with a career and achievements. He took a deep breath and whispered, "You know, Agent Doyle, true strength doesn't lie in intimidation. It lies in justice, respect, and truth." At that moment, his cell phone vibrated in his pocket. His mother, Margaret Bennet, had been trying to contact him for several minutes. Seeing that he couldn't answer immediately, he left a voicemail. "Mom, I'm under arrest, calm down. I'm handling it." Margaret felt her heart sink. She knew Doyle's temper and Maplewood's reputation too well to know how quickly this arrest could escalate. Without wasting time, she called Captain Ramirez, Tomas's superior and mentor in the army. "Ramirez, this is Margaret Bennet, Tomas's mother. Something's wrong," she said urgently. "My son is under arrest, and I fear for him." "Stay calm, Margaret," Ramirez replied. "I'm on my way. Don't let anyone make this worse." Meanwhile, in the patrol car, Doyle continued to label Tomas a suspect, ignoring the evidence and the officer's dignity. Tomas, however, knew that the situation would soon change. Justice and truth were on the side of those who served with honor, and Ramirez was already on his way to prove it. Margaret Bennet pressed the phone to her ear, her heart pounding. She knew Doyle's reputation: young, arrogant, impulsive, and unwilling to listen to anyone, especially a black man driving a luxury car. "Ramirez, this is serious. I feel like they could hurt him," she said in a trembling voice. "I understand, Margaret. Take a deep breath. I'm already in my car and I'm heading there." "No one will touch Tomas," Captain Ramirez added, his firm, authoritative tone contrasting with Margaret's concern. A few minutes later, the roar of a military vehicle echoed down the deserted street. Ramirez, in full uniform, arrived on the scene with all the confidence and discipline of an experienced officer. His eyes immediately fell on Tomas in the back of the patrol car and on Doyle, who was trying to maintain his composure despite the evidence of his challenged authority. "What's going on here?" Ramirez asked, his voice resonating with authority. Doyle, surprised and slightly unsettled, stammered. He's a suspect, sir." Ramirez took a step forward, his penetrating, impassive gaze fixed on Doyle. "He's an officer in the Air Force, and you're arresting him for no good reason. Get his military papers immediately." Doyle, embarrassed, tried to justify his actions, but it was clear that his arrogance had just hit an insurmountable wall. Ramirez continued, impassive. "I order you to release Officer Bennet immediately. You are in violation." Doyle's face tightened. He was humiliated, but he had no choice. Hesitantly, he opened the door and allowed Tomas to get out. Tomas stood up calmly, his impeccable uniform reflecting his seriousness and discipline. "Thank you, Captain," Tomas murmured, grateful but still in control of himself. Ramirez placed a reassuring hand on Tomas's shoulder. "No one will hurt you here. You stay with me now." As Doyle tried to regain control of the situation, Margaret, witnessing the scene from the sidewalk, felt an immense sense of relief. But she knew that this case wouldn't end simply with a release. Doyle's actions would have consequences, and Tomas would show everyone the power of justice and dignity. Tomas stepped out of the patrol car with quiet dignity, his gaze clear and his back straight. Beside him, Captain Ramirez walked with the authority of experience, immediately commanding respect. The cool night air seemed to cleanse the tension accumulating in the deserted streets of Maplewood. Doyle, red with frustration and humiliation, tried to regain control. "Wait, you can't just." "I can," Ramirez replied firmly, cutting off any attempt at justification. "You violated his rights. You release him immediately." A few passers-by, attracted by the flashing lights and the commotion, had stopped. Some of them had taken out their phones to film. The image of a black military officer, unjustly arrested by an arrogant police officer, was already beginning to circulate. "Tomas, stay calm and follow me," Ramirez said, placing his hand on his protégé's shoulder. As Tomas and Ramirez walked away, Doyle tried to defend himself. "Captain," he matched the description. "Description or prejudice?" Ramirez replied sharply. "Your actions are unacceptable. The city and the army will not tolerate this." Tomas, silent, watched the scene with a mixture of calm and determination. He knew that his honor and career were not in danger, but that the reputation of Officer Doyle and the local police had just taken a severe blow. Margaret Bennett, still present, felt immense pride for her son. She knew this moment would mark a turning point. The unjust arrest would not go unpunished, and Tomas's dignity would serve as an example. Meanwhile, Doyle realized he had underestimated the power of an officer backed by the military and the truth. Ramirez's intervention had already transformed a potentially catastrophic situation into a confrontation where justice and honor clearly prevailed. And in the shadows, the video shot by a passerby began circulating on social media, ready to expose the arrogance and injustice of which Doyle had just been guilty. Just hours after the incident, the video shot by a bystander was already online. The footage showed Tomas Bennett, calm and respectful, sitting in the back of the police car as Officer Doyle confronted him with arrogance and prejudice. The video perfectly captured the contrast, a disciplined officer versus an impulsive and unfair police officer. Social media quickly went viral. Comments flooded in, "Racist arrest. How can you treat an officer like that? Maplewood must act." Hashtags multiplied, and the video went viral within hours. In Maplewood, residents spontaneously gathered near the scene of the arrest. Groups denounced the injustice and supported Tomas. Some passers-by who had filmed the event shared the video with their contacts, and soon the story was picked up by local and national media. Doyle, feeling the pressure mounting, tried to calm the situation. He gave impromptu interviews, but his arrogance and lack of humility betrayed his guilt. His explanations rang hollow in the face of the video and the testimonies of bystanders. Meanwhile, Tomas, surrounded by his family and Captain Ramirez, observed the situation calmly. He knew that anger or aggression would achieve nothing. His dignity and truth were his best weapons. "They won't be able to ignore this," Margaret Bennett whispered to her son. "Your patience and calm will speak for you." "I know," Tomas replied. "But it's not just for me. It's for everyone who suffers this kind of injustice. People need to see that the truth always triumphs in the end." The town of Maplewood had just discovered the extent of Doyle's arrogance and the power of justice embodied by Tomas. What seemed like a simple arrest would become a symbol of courage, dignity, and resistance against prejudice. And in the midst of this media storm, Doyle began to understand that he had just caused a scandal from which he would not emerge unscathed. The next morning, Tomas Bennett sat in Captain Ramirez's office, pondering how best to handle the situation. The video of his arrest was already circulating nationwide, and the pressure on Officer Doyle and the local police was becoming unbearable. "Tomas," Ramirez said, crossing his arms, "it's time to take action. But this isn't about personal revenge. It's about justice and showing that arrogance and racism have consequences." Tomas nodded. "I agree. I want to make it clear, this isn't just about me, but about everyone who has been a victim of injustice." They immediately contacted the military legal team. Lawyers experienced in civil rights and racial harassment cases were mobilized. Their goal was clear: to document every violation of Tomas's rights and expose Doyle's unacceptable behavior in court. "We're going to use the video as our central exhibit," one of the lawyers explained. "It shows everything: your calm, his bias, and most importantly, the contrast between your actions and those of Officer Doyle." Tomas nodded. "Very well. But everything must be done precisely. No exaggeration, no anger, just the facts." Meanwhile, Doyle was beginning to feel the consequences of his actions. Social media, local and national media, and even the citizens of Maplewood were expressing their outrage. His immediate superior was beginning to worry about the impact on the police department's reputation. "You were reckless," Doyle muttered to himself. "I had no idea it was going to blow up like this." Tomas, for his part, remained calm and determined. He knew that true revenge came not from aggression or anger, but from justice applied with intelligence and strategy. In the days that followed, preparations for legal action took shape: bystander testimonies, video evidence, military documents, and official statements. Everything was ready for Doyle to finally understand that his arrogance and prejudice would cost him dearly. And in that silent waiting, Tomas knew he held the most powerful force: truth and patience. A few weeks after the incident, the Tomas Bennett case reached the courtroom. The courtroom was filled with journalists, bystanders, outraged citizens, and members of the military community. Officer Doyle, visibly nervous, tried to maintain his composure, while Tomas, immaculate in his uniform, remained calm and confident. The judge opened the session. "We are here to review the arrest of Officer Tomas Bennett by Officer Sebastian Doyle. We will hear evidence and testimony from both sides." The first piece of evidence presented was the viral video. The entire room fell silent when the footage showed Tomas sitting calmly in the back of the police car, respectfully answering questions from an arrogant and biased Doyle. Murmurs spread through the audience. The facts spoke for themselves. "Mr. Bennett," said the defense attorney, "can you explain what happened that night?" Tomas stood up slowly. His voice was calm, his gaze frank. "I was arrested for no good reason, simply because I fit a prejudice based on my skin color and the car I was driving. I served this country with honor, and this treatment was unfair. I am here not only for myself, but for all those who have been victims of discrimination and unjustified prejudice." The jurors and the audience were struck by his calm and dignity. No words of anger, no personal accusations, only the truth. Doyle tried to defend himself. "I was acting according to procedures." "According to your prejudices," Tomas's lawyer calmly corrected him, presenting the chronology of events. "Your behavior was motivated by assumptions, not facts." Testimonies from bystanders and video evidence reinforced Tomas's version. Every detail demonstrated Doyle's bias and abuse of power. At the end of the day, the judge spoke. The arrest of Officer Tomas Bennett was unjustified and based on bias. Officer Sebastian Doyle will be disciplined for abuse of power and civil rights violations. Doyle paled, realizing the magnitude of his defeat. Tomas's honor and discipline had triumphed, and his reputation was intact, unlike the agent's. As Tomas left the room, the community and journalists cheered him. This wasn't just a personal victory, it was a lesson for anyone who thought arrogance and prejudice could go unnoticed. Officer Sebastian Doyle never imagined his actions would have such consequences. Days after the trial, he received the official sanctions, immediate suspension, a thorough internal investigation, and the loss of certain privileges. His reputation within the police department was irreparably damaged. On the streets of Maplewood, the news spread quickly. Residents, once silent in the face of abuse, began to speak out. Discussions in local cafes, offices, and businesses all revolved around the unjust arrest and the courage of Tomas Bennett. Local and national media picked up the story, highlighting not only Doyle's implicit racism, but also the officer's dignity and discipline. Margaret Bennett, Tomas's mother, felt an immense sense of relief. She knew her son had been treated with respect and that justice had been done, but she also realized that the lesson extended beyond their family. "People need to understand that no one is above justice," she said to Tomas. "Exactly," he replied. "It's not just a victory for me, but for all those who suffer silent injustices." Doyle, for his part, was isolated. His colleagues now viewed him with suspicion and disdain. Every step he took was a reminder of his past arrogance. He understood that his behavior had come at a high price. Not only was his career compromised, but his personal and professional credibility ruined. Tomas, surrounded by his family and friends, could finally breathe a sigh of relief. His patience, self-control, and sense of justice had paid off. The city, witnessing this victory, began to realize the importance of dignity, respect, and truth. And in the heart of Maplewood, the story of that unjust arrest became a symbol, a lesson that arrogance and prejudice never triumph over truth and honor. A few weeks after the trial ended, Tomas Bennett gradually returned to his quiet life in Maplewood. His military missions continued, but this time with renewed gratitude and unquestioned respect, not only from his superiors, but also from the community. In the neighborhood, residents greeted Tomas with admiration and respect. Cafes and shops displayed messages of support, and some young people even came to ask him for advice on discipline and honor. Tomas smiled humbly at everyone, aware that his victory was not just personal, but collective. Officer Sebastian Doyle had left the department and was trying to rebuild his life, but his career was shattered. Every interaction reminded him of the failure of his arrogance and prejudice. His name was now associated with a lesson in humility, not authority. Tomas spent time with his family, sharing the simple moments he had come to appreciate even more. His mother, Margaret, never failed to remind friends and neighbors that dignity and patience had been her son's true weapons. "This isn't just a victory for you, Tomas," she said, shaking his hand. "It's a victory for all those who believe in justice." Tomas nodded, looking out at the calm and serene Maplewood skyline. He knew this experience would leave a lasting mark on the city and those who witnessed it. Justice had triumphed, and with it, human dignity and truth had been protected. That night, as the stars shone above the small town, Tomas understood that true power lay in calmness, patience, and a determination to do what was right. Maplewood, and those who had witnessed that lesson, would never forget the name Tomas Bennett. And in this newfound peace, he knew that dignity and truth could always triumph, even in the darkest times.